Hey guys, welcome back to the 10-8 Fightcast. Trevor and Dylan here, and this week we're going to be talking a little bit about my origins in the martial arts, the UFC fight night that just went by, and whatever else strikes our fancy because we're in the middle of a MMA drought for the next couple weeks. So we're going to be getting creative here with the topics that we discuss on the 10-8 Fightcast for the next 3 weeks. So
is that a dartboard?
Bear with us here. Yeah, we might create like a pin the tail and knock you type situation. So we did want to mention a few things from this past weekend's fight card. Chidi, how do you pronounce this last name?
Njokuani. I do have a word.
Incredible.
Oh my god, incredible elbow. Just right out of the guard. Bow.
Super violent, clinch, super instantaneous too. Just lights shut off on Dusko Todorovic.
I do enjoy when Talia is watching fights when like shit like that happens because she is still so new to it. She goes, oh fuck, like better than anybody else. Like she jumps out of her seat. Like me, it was like one of those knockouts where it's like I love being a fan and seeing that happen.
Exactly. Yes. The only time knockouts really bother me or scare me anymore is when one, the fight should have been stopped long before the knockout took place, or like Tony Ferguson, they get knocked out in a brutal way and then they stay unconscious for a very long time, like 3-4 minutes. That's fucking scary to me.
I've been knocked out, like I've been out cold for 5 minutes before and not known it.
Right.
Like, I remember getting hit and then looking up the ceiling like, oh, hey, oh, what's my buddy doing sitting over there? Hey man, like everything okay? And it's like, what the fuck happened? Like, and there's some times where you're just like, oh, I still have no idea where I am.
Right.
Yeah, like I've woken up in a locker room before, like. We were in the ring. Oh, I'm in a locker room now.
Yes,
I'm like, this
we
is
talked about that a little bit last week. We touched on some of those classic Trevor tales.
Touched on one of those.
Maybe there will be some time for some classic Trevor tales at the end of this episode.
Coffee with Trevor. Here's what you got to look out for when you're signing up for fights. Don't do it at a bar.
Pay attention to the rule sets.
Yeah.
Obviously, never accept a fight when you're hammered drunk.
Also, you know what decade you're in, possibly, because this is still...
How many push-ups you can do.
This isn't even 2010.
Maybe take note of how many push-ups, pull-ups you can do.
Maybe don't be smoking cigarettes.
Yeah,
like
that too.
Right. After your run. It's like, it was the military. You can just do it, whatever.
Santiago Ponzinibbio and Michel Pereira put on a really great fight,
man. A great slugfest.
We were talking about how, but before we started recording, we were talking about how every time Michel Pereira comes out there, he looks so much better.
Oh,
and it's crazy to see like him when he first got to the UFC and he was Eddie Gordo from Tekken 7 versus now where he's still got that explosiveness and that athleticism and that ability to, I don't know, go off the rails a little bit, but
he's pushed a good pace for 3 rounds. Where he used to be just like, let me just do stuff, and he's like, shit, what do I do now?
Right.
And he'd run out.
He's
but
doing
now,
stuff with intent.
He had a when you hear people talking about the boxing improvements, and they showed in this. They were talking about he really just focused on boxing this entire fight.
Correct.
And it showed. But that was the right thing to like counter Ponzinibbio's like big shots. Like if you're an educated boxer, you could see like Ponzinibbio's like shots a little bit easier and. But hey, he just kept Adam with the down the line, staying just offline, having his head offside his 1s and 2s. Like it was a really great boxing showcase. Had a really good long right hook from what I remember.
Yeah, like, definitely a long guy. He can hit you at the whipping end of a lot of his strikes. He's got he's
explosive and he's whippy. Like and he showed a lot of really good resilience where he knows he's able to like and you have to know how to wade through those combinations like that. That's an acquired skill.
This is the guy who, you know, technically, like, on paper lost to Diego Sanchez. You know, and before that fight was ended, it wasn't like he was having a world championship type performance.
No,
but to take it, take the fight for that many rounds to a guy like Santiago Ponzinibbio.
That's a big improvement.
The decision, you know,
so I feel like he thought he was going to run through Sanchez.
And being, you know, split decision is like, it's not, I thought that Santiago was, I thought he was thoroughly outclassed through most of the fight. Just in terms of pressure
he was in the fight.
Right. Yes. He was never. It was never. You know, like.
I'll say there were no free exchanges, and that's what made it fun.
Yes.
Ponzinibbio might not have been winning like the exchange count. He definitely like put some damage on Pereira's face in that 3rd round. Like we saw Pereira's face changing throughout that 3rd round. I mean,
I think the 3rd round is probably
was Ponzinibbio's best round, but you really saw like no exchange was free for either guy.
No.
Every time that there were punches thrown, there were punches given and taken. And you were just like, fuck,
Ponz's got a lot of power too, but he just hasn't looked the same since he came back from injury.
Yeah, like it was a really bad like
just,
MRSA
right.
infection of his legs or something, right?
Yeah, and he just has not looked like the same guy. I mean, this is a guy who like buzzsawed through Gunnar Nelson. And
he
like,
also has a regular job now with the UFC and you see a lot of these guys. You know, he's 35. Don't blame him for taking a commentating job. Like,
yeah,
you know,
unfortunately for us, but yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where he just like where he's at. You know, he's definitely not in the camps full time like he used to be.
Right.
Having that time off, he just has a different schedule now.
Yeah,
and so
who knows?
you know, it might not be like he needs to train more. He just needs to retrain what he's doing in his training sessions. I think, like mixing up like good like not live sparring rounds, but lots of good drilling rounds. Just keeping his body moving. Like I tell people like never stop contact. I don't think he has to spar anymore. I think he just has to keep his training sessions like live, technical, and situational.
There's a lot of guys at his level that don't really spar. You know?
Yeah, like you'll see Ponzinibbio will just keep trying to do the same thing over and over throughout a fight. He just has to have more rounds where you can start improvising, getting offline a bit more. He just has to like not change how he's training. I think just change how he's preparing, like what to do in a fight. As you'll see, like he kept fighting the same way this whole fight. Like you don't see him like Pereira will alternate between outside range, inside range when he's keeping long combinations. And Ponzinibbio's like, okay, I'm just gonna stay in front, try to hit him hard. Like, and he does that the whole time. Like he does it very well. But I feel like he just needs to start putting himself in different spots. I think when people fight him, they know where he's going to be at round 1, 2, 3.
He's not really finishing people anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like his power used to. He could always touch people.
He can't hit people. So this is the thing I tell people like, hey, your best shots are not in front of somebody.
Yeah.
He just needs to let people know like he does a great job. His pressure in front is great. He doesn't have the knockouts in front of people like when he flatlined Neil Magny like blah. That was just Neil's in front of him. Boom, touch. Those have been some of his best knockouts. He doesn't have that. He now has to get that person to need to step past his punches, get offline, make them walk into a shot. His best shots, I think, are going to be offline. So I think he's become with pop. Let me try to counter with this angle to find my next best shot. Does that make sense? Yeah. Try to pull people into combinations more instead of just put himself in front. In front, offline, let me pull you into this three-piece now.
You have to be a three-dimensional striker in MMA. You cannot be on a straight line,
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of guys who can, with their athleticism, with their power, whatever the case may be, they can get to the level of a UFC fighter, and sometimes they're so athletic and so powerful they can even get into the top 20, top 15 in their division, but then they start to be exposed as kind of a guy who can only go forward in a straight line. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I think that, when you start going up against people with general ringsmanship, that happens a lot earlier in boxing and Muay Thai and kickboxing than it does in MMA because wrestling is a factor. There's so many other factors besides
and I bring that up all the time. Like, there's so many weird things in MMA you'll have to look out for.
Yeah.
Like, I love questions from students and stuff like that, but sometimes in MMA it's just tough because, like, what if this person does this? And it's like,
it's the ultimate
shit, man. It is. It's like, well, shit. Like, there's all these options, but then this person can also counterback that with this. Like, it's not only like some people see like, well, what about this opening? And I'm like, well, it's not about that opening. It's like what I can now come back to you with behind your attack that you just attacked me. It is the most fucked up chess game sometimes.
Right.
Every counter has a counter. You ever seen that movie, The Big Hit? Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, I was like, what,
this is like they have like the phone line buster, the buster to the phone line buster, the buster of the phone line buster. Like that is the MMA. It is just like this weird fucking like every attack has an answer, every counter has a counter.
Forever.
Like, forever and ever.
Yeah,
like it is fuck, man.
Was it Helio? It was either Helio or Hoist, but one of them said, jiu-jitsu is essentially I do this and then you do this and then that goes on forever until one of us, taps or dies.
Being an MMA coach.
And MMA is like that, but there's more paths.
Yeah.
There's even more alternate realities.
Like I tell people there is like when I corner Muay Thai fights, like is it frustrating? Like am I passionate? Yes, but it's like there's also way more control to it. Like same thing for boxing matches. Like it's always still win or lose. It's crazy. What can still happen in a Muay Thai fight? What can happen in a boxing match? But knowing there's not going to be takedowns and jiu-jitsu involved, like it's almost like calming.
Great example.
Right.
Great example would be what would our world be like if Ben Askren had not ate that knee from Jorge Masvidal and Jorge was just flying through the air on Ben's shoulders.
Right.
You know, like there's an alternate universe where Jorge got fucking wrestle fucked for 3 rounds.
Exactly.
By Ben Askren, and then Ben Askren went on to challenge Kamaru for the title. Go
figure.
You know, or some shit like that.
And then now Ben Askren is the greatest welterweight of all time. And then George St. Pierre comes out of retirement, he beats him at 85.
I mean, who knows? Who knows what? And Jorge Masvidal's trajectory into superstardom would have probably.
He just
not
owns
been there.
a Cuban food like truck.
Yeah,
like that's what he does.
Miami,
yeah.
right.
But no, like being an MMA coach, like cornering MMA is kind of like that movie Airplane. Today's a bad day to stop sniffing glue. Like today's a bad day to stop smoking.
That reference might be lost on our younger viewers.
Yeah, man.
But
like,
Airplane was a funny movie.
Probably the most like horrifically PG movie. Where I'm just like, how fucked up is it?
A
like
movie
that
would never be PG today. Right?
Like
it would probably
so,
just be straight up.
No,
rated,
yeah, like if you
PG-13
play that movie in a kid's classroom, they might cry. Like,
right.
Where I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, haha, that's funny.
Temple of Doom is PG, and a guy's face melts off.
A dude's heart, like isn't there the one where like his heart gets pulled out,
right?
Like, Kali Mal, and I'm like, that's PG, bro. Like that's a man's beating heart.
Yeah.
No wonder we're ruthless.
Movies
to some
used
people.
to go hard. Movies used to go hard. Holly Holm, Caitlin Veira, a lot of
talking about some
controversy.
Feelings. Talking about
a lot of feelings here. Definitely not a fight where the comments were PG.
Okay,
online.
yeah, man. This was one of those where I know I was tired. Talia and I were tired watching the end of this fight.
You were on the edge of your seat for this exciting women's bantamweight bout featuring former champion Holly Holm and upcoming contender Caitlin Veira.
I don't know, I was kind of enjoying my Rice Krispies.
These fucking action-packed women's fighters. Holly
Holm. I was rewriting out my Rice Krispie treats recipe that I made earlier and trying to make a TikTok video out of it. But no, yeah, we were kind of shocked when we heard the announced score. At the end. We were just like, wait, what? Like
it's almost like the MMA gods are like punishing Holly for her.
Sorry, my shorts are hiking up.
Thighs, man. The thighs are out of control. The quad god has been unleashed.
My hot dog legs.
Holly's style is just it's like she runs into the same problem that Wonder Boy does, where even when she's doing her best work, it sometimes doesn't look like she's winning the fight.
Yes.
And that's like problematic because when you fight like that, you tend to not be able to finish people.
She's smart at playing safe.
And when you can't finish people and it goes to the judges' scorecards like this,
well, you can't expect that. Yeah.
Sometimes the judges they see it a certain way, and they saw
that
Caitlin Veira was just pressuring,
was trying to pressure and throw harder and just going for it. Yeah.
I think Holly probably should have won, but I also think that it's a little too close.
I tell people fights look way different from when you're here to when we're watching it. Like from where we sat watching on TV, we see everything that Holly Holm is doing.
We know
there, and when you're next to that cage, it's just that like as a person that has like judge fights in person and judge fights away, like and then I see it again, then I'm just like, well, damn! Now it looks like a different fight.
Yeah, we've commentated so many fights from cage side that we thought we saw a certain way, and then we go back and look at the replay, and we're like, oh, this is a completely different fight on the monitor where you can actually see above the ropes and see there's nothing in your way, there's no cage wall or anything. It's just in there with the fighters. It's a little bit different,
A little bit different.
And I think that it's very possible, even though the judges have monitors at this level, that they're not looking at the right one, or that there's a moment where they're looking, at the cage instead, and that's fine too. But yeah, I just think that Holly's style, it lends itself to decisions, and when you constantly go to decisions, you better fight in a way where it looks like you're fucking winning every round. Yes. Like Joanna Jacek is a great example of somebody who does not ever really finish people. She
puts out so much volume where you're still looking at going like, God damn, she's still doing it.
And even in fights where people think that she might have lost, she gets the nod often because she's heavier on volume. Like in the Zhang Weili fight, I think the thing that separated Zhang from her and ended up with Zhang getting the win was some of the takedowns. But if you look at the volume, Joanna was putting out numbers.
Numbers.
So I mean, it's tough. I think that probably the worst robbery scoring wise for a women's fight that I've seen has been Valentina Shevchenko versus Amanda Nunes 2, where Amanda got the nod over Valentina. I think that one was a very close fight, but I think that it was overwhelmingly Valentina controlling the exchanges. And
some people don't recognize controlling exchanges.
Yes, right, yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to, like, Daniel Cormier was talking about how either the judges don't know what they're judging or we don't know what we're watching. And it's just like, when Daniel Cormier says that, it's like, how does he not know what he's watching? I mean, he's one of the pound for pound MMA fighters of all time, one of the best commentators and analysts in the game, has like was put into commentary at the highest level for his debut.
Yes.
Like, his debut was like a big fight night.
Yeah.
And ever since then, he's been on pay-per-view card. I mean, that
I
doesn't happen.
Daniel Cormier talk.
That does not happen.
It doesn't happen.
I think people just, like, don't realize that Daniel didn't do the fucking Contender Series first. Like, Paul Felder had to prove himself.
Brian Stan used to commentate college football for a long time.
Yes.
And that's when all of a sudden they realized, they were like, hey, you want to commentate for these fights because it's part of Fox now? And he was like, well, fuck yeah. Because Brian Stan was a long-time football player. And stand out at a point, what's the fucking Army Academy?
West Point?
Yeah. Point West.
Wow, how do I know that? I'm like the least military person.
I was like, wait, why did I just ask you that?
You were in the military. I don't know how I knew that.
Bro, when I was in the military, but like I wasn't like military.
You're not military, bro. Definitely not. Yeah. But what do you think about
Sergeant Bilko style over here?
What do you think about open scoring? Because a lot of people are calling for open scoring.
Yeah, like when you see that, like in the PFL, like it does come in handy. Where it's like, man, that first round goes a long way if you're gonna know, like, well, fuck, we might have to shift gears, like about what. Hey, it's good to know if these judges are on our side or not with this.
Yeah, but you know what the opposite of open scoring is that I always hate to see? When they have a random commentator who has a scorecard. Like, John McCarthy always has one for Bellator, and it's like, hey, I don't really give a fuck what Big John thinks is going on in this fight, because he's one of the worst commentators of all time.
But he knows. I'd give him a card.
He knows the rules, but like, I don't think he understands the scoring criteria, because in the wake of certain decisions, he just gets it wrong. Like, he just thinks that, things should go a certain way, and that, he has a certain view on what is stalling and grappling, and I'm just not in agreement with him.
Yeah.
I think that if somebody's past the guard, or in, like, let's say 3/4 mount, or like a dominant flat half guard, no matter what they're doing, they're in an advantageous position.
Right.
They shouldn't be called for stalling. As long as they're striking or continuously grappling, it's like, it's the same thing as taking somebody off of somebody's back or mount for me, because that 3/4 mount or half guard position with the leg staple is more powerful than the mount in MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little old school. Plus, he is like a proponent of keeping 12-6 elbows banned, which I don't really understand anymore.
Yeah,
he's kind of an old school guy. I just don't think he's changed a lot as we've seen the meta of MMA evolve.
The only thing, like, and I've said this about like the 12-6, I'm like, it's like the ice break rule is dumb, but like the trajectory of like the eye socket makes sense.
Yeah.
Trajectory of eye socket.
That's
is that
true.
Right? Yeah, like that's the only thing I personally see. Like, I feel like
But I feel like I could get an elbow into your eye.
Oh, you
just
still
as
can.
easy.
You
like
still
this,
like this can still hit the eye and stuff like that, but like it can smash across. Like, I think they should allow it if it's like.
Eyebrows.
I think they should allow them, like, if you're like, like to the top of to the forehead, like right here is fine. I mean, just be wary it's going to hit the eye more. I feel like these elbows can still definitely hit the eye, but there's way more we can hit across right here. There's something bad with me where I'm like, yeah, like the 12-6. I'm like, man, like, do it to the top of the head, like, sure, but just like maybe not around the entire face here, like not towards the nose, I guess. Like, I mean, or the eye. Like, I don't know. To me, just as someone who's been on my back and gone, well, this can fucking suck really bad. Like,
yeah,
like, a lot of people say, like, I don't like the 12-6 is dumb. Me personally, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, like I say, don't have it. Like, I don't want to see someone get hit right in the eye with it. Like, there's that weird dad thing I have as a coach where it's like.
I just think that if you can fucking spinning heel kick somebody.
Oh, I know, yeah.
In the fucking eye socket and.
I know. There's so many things that can still hit your eye, like the small gloves.
And also from above.
Those small gloves get your eyes like
from
so
above,
much.
I feel like there's more there's more protection with the fucking crown of the head, and because this is just your orbital.
Yeah,
and this is just the thinnest part of your orbital.
Oh, I know.
Here.
Yeah, I've cracked mine. It sucks.
So right here on the side is a very thin wall and membrane.
Yeah, you see
I feel like that.
You see it break in Muay Thai all the time. But what I'm saying, Dylan, is you don't know shit, and the Hoist Gracie knife is going to judge you for this now.
It thirsts for blood.
It thirsts for blood again. Happy anniversary, buddy.
Let's tell the story of this night.
What? Oh, the 12.
I'm done talking about.
God damn it! Like, I thought you were done on 12 to 6 elbows. I'm just no. Like, it's one of those things where I just I don't know, man. Like, it's a dumb fun sport. Like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, yeah, 12 to 6. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I fear for eyes.
It's not like I'm some barbarian. I don't want soccer kicks to grounded opponents or anything.
But I personally like soccer kicks. I love watching Japanese MMA and the soccer kicks. Woo! And they don't allow elbows, which is wild to me. I think the knees to the head are great on the ground. But yeah, the 12, it's like, that's the weird.
The knees to the head.
Hey, it's the weird dichotomy. I don't know, man. Like,
knees to the head, I'm like right down the middle on it. I like it, but I don't. I'm like a knee to the head centrist. Like, I like it, but when I see it,
one of my favorite tweets in combat sports is Demetrius Johnson. Man, knees on the ground are different, huh? Yeah. After he gets fucking, he just goes, "What is this?"
Like a week or two after Aljamain, the whole Aljamain controversy, where he was like, "That's exactly why knees to the head should just be legal," and then he gets knocked out by one. Yeah, that was the moment where I was like, ooh, do I like knees to the head on grounded opponents? Like, I thought I did until I saw Demetrius get knocked out by it, and then I was like, oh, I didn't like that. Maybe I don't like this.
Maybe I don't like this at all, no.
Yeah, but no, I still think I think that I like those. I think I like those. But yeah, soccer kicks.
I know, how weird. Like, I don't like the 12 to 6. I'm like, yeah, let's just keep that out of there. But like, yeah, let's put in knees and soccer kicks. Like, that's cool. Fuck it.
So open scoring.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
No. Well, we went off on that 10-minute tangent about rules.
Yeah, I mean, because I've had friends say that were at like the IFMA World Games and stuff like that in Denver, and they have the open scoring, and a lot of the coaches were like, okay, let's see what they're looking for. Oh fuck, why aren't they scoring it that way? We got to change.
I think it's Jeff Grady who was talking about open scoring recently.
He was, yeah, and he was saying that he was like, yeah, like I kind of get it a bit more now, because in the Muay Thai community, like man, as someone that's judged Muay Thai fights, I'm like, dude, there's some wonky fucking judges out there. You need to know if they're counting your sweeps, if they're counting how they're counting the clinch, how they're counting, like, those are things that you can factor. Like, I tell people, a minute feels like a long time to change a game plan, man. Like, we've had to, like, entirely shift game plans going, and that's not even I don't even do game plans. It's just like, we got to make these adjustments right fucking now, dude. It's like change the tires, putting gas in, like bop, bop, bop.
Game time decisions.
Yeah, game time decisions. Right. Like, you can make a lot of small adjustments in a minute with somebody if you are always coaching them and always preaching. Like, that's why, like, I don't care about, like, tape too much on people. It's just like, they're going to fight. Like, we're going to have to come in here and fight. The fight's going to start one way or the other. Whatever. We have to be ready to be ready if our start goes wrong, more or less.
Yeah.
It's like what I tell people. Like,
right, especially the sweeps. For Muay Thai especially, it's so crazy.
Everyone is so
different.
There's the American there's the American style.
You can have an impression
of sweeps
of
scoring.
you can have an impression of what you're going to be scored on based upon previous fights at a promotion. Show up to the rules meeting and they're talking about the sweeps differently. Like, promotion to promotion, it can be different, you know. And then within the same promotion, the commission for the same state can come in on two different events and be like, today we're not counting sweeps, today we are. You know, it's kind of fucking
you heard
weird.
The last, like, South Carolina fight where, it's where, like, even my buddies and I just go, okay, like, and you, like, I literally told my hunters, like, wait, we are sweeping. I went, you know what, dude, do one and let's see if they call it. And in that fight, like, hunter's like, okay, sweeps the guy. We both look at the ref and just go, fair game, dude. We're getting sweeps every round. Then we didn't train sweeps for that fight. That's the great thing about it is, like, Hunter's
been around the block long enough to know how to fucking sweep people, and you know, he's got exceptional sweeps.
But that was, like, the great thing about it. Like, we were preparing for a Glory Rules fight, which is no sweeps. You can kick legs out, but you can't catch and sweep. You can't dump out of the clinch. So that's why we were just like, I mean, that was a game day change. We were just like, hey, I know we didn't really train sweeps in the past. Like focus on him, but, like, he'll still hit him. Like, I'll still tell him, like, hey, make sure you knock out these rounds of, like, glory sparring. But if he has a Muay Thai fight, like, train your sweeps. And he goes, okay, cool. So even though we didn't make it a focus, he still knew. He was like, all right, shit, I'll hit the sweeps when they're there. And that's how you can win a fight with a broken foot. So, but yeah, like those game day decisions, like those round by round decisions, like that becomes a big thing. Hey, pressure in, so it's going to be over. You can sweep. That's it.
Yeah,
and it works.
Right.
Like, and we have to keep that going. And then it's also like, hey, if we know what the judges are looking for in this fight, then it's like, okay.
Do you think it's weird that the judges aren't required to attend the rules meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
I'm one of the I've called for it where I think that judges need to be regularly tested, like and checked with by commissions and like sanctioning bodies and officials, like
in an ideal world. But Kevin
Williams
doing this
and Blake Grice. I've gotten to work alongside those guys at like rule meeting. Like I remember like Chris Luter, who's now like a full referee. I remember when he was coming up before he was even checking locker rooms because I helped teach him. Like I helped show him the process of what to look for. Like I'm not like an official certified guy, but it's like people like to have these things so I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I remember like we were going over these things like, yeah, you have like all the passing stuff for it. But like I remember when like Luter was like starting to train for it.
In an ideal world, there would be just generally more accountability and responsibility on the judges. But like in the 4.5 years that I've been doing this and being backstage at MMA events and seeing rules meeting after rules meeting after rules meeting, the only time I've ever seen judges or athletic commission staff attend the rules meeting is if they are also or trying to become referees.
Yes.
Chris Luter is a great example. Jimmy Neely. Those guys, especially Luter when he was, like you said, just an athletic commission staff person and judge, was always at those rules meetings.
Always.
And I feel like there's so many people that I know judge fights because I see them judging fights at every event that I've never seen them at a rules meeting. And it makes me question, do they know what we're scoring tonight? Do they know that sweeps are scoreable? Do they know that sweeps are not scoreable?
A lot of them have that like boxing mentality. Okay, we're just looking for punches, or like, hey, we're just looking for punches and kicks, like whatever.
Extremely problematic.
Like when Muay Thai was coming back in the Southeast, or like when it's been like Florida forever, but like the Carolinas and stuff like that, with the coming like more sanctioning bodies coming in, there were a lot of judges that didn't know what knees to look for, what catches to sweeps, how those countered, how sweeps in general look.
That's why I love doing the Gamma events. I feel like when we do events that Justin Williams, is that his name? When he is the sanctioning body on those conflict events, when he was, it was like every judge was also a referee or someone very referee adjacent, like Desiree Neely. Like she's a great judge for MMA in the area too. So it's like it just seems like the
Stephen Pontinebius. He's a referee and he's always judging. He's good to talk to.
Good looking guy too. Handsome man. Looks
made of stone.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
just chiseled from marble. I just see him. I'm like, God, why? Like this isn't fair. Or like
referee, I think, for sure.
I just scream at the heavens and go, why?
Before we get started talking about me, you mentioned the Hoist Gracie knife.
Oh, the
and I think this is a great story. I would love for you to tell the Hoist Gracie knife story since we have some time.
No, it was one of my bouncing nights. I like some people find it so funny that I used to bounce because I don't come off as like the normal bouncer. I'm a very small. I love to.
You're not 6'4".
I'm not 6'4". I'm not a linebacker. I'm a 5'8" on a good day dude. Like I'm just a guy. Is like how I come off. And I started bouncing because a former NC State wrestler was running Pantana Bob on Hillsborough Street. And
PB's classic spot if you're in the Raleigh area.
And
so you're looking to shoot some pool.
So
there's nowhere else to go.
He found out I wrestled because I came to a Halloween party wearing a red singlet, just saying I'm looking for shoot.
And there are two places. Before we get too deep into this, if you're ever visiting Raleigh, I know we have people in South Carolina that watch the show and stuff. If you're ever visiting Raleigh, there's two places where if you meet a woman, avoid her, and that's Pantana Bob's and the Goat.
Pantana Bob's is gone now. Pantana Bob's is gone. It's now apartments like for college students.
But isn't there still a PB's pool hall?
There's still a PB's pool hall.
Okay. Yeah. You don't meet a woman there, and you don't meet a woman at the Goat, both of which you bounced at, I believe.
Yes. I used to. So that is from the Goat, where I used to bounce Sundays by myself. That was rough. But anyways, I got into bouncing off of Hillsborough Street because I wore a singlet to like a Halloween party. He was like, "Wait, you used to wrestle?" I was like, "Yeah, and I do all this shit too." And he was like, "Wait, you come to my bar, right?" And I'm like, yeah, Jeff, like, what's up, man? He was like, oh, so you're not that much of an asshole when you're sober. And I'm like, not yet. Just you wait for the night to come. I'm like, that's how I got into bouncing.
Grabbing a drink.
Yeah. But, no, so this was one night I'm just trying to check IDs. This guy came in already. He showed up already kind of drunk. He wasn't blackout, but I can tell a person has pregame. And he has, like, sober friends with him. And I'm just like, cool, just got to keep an eye on these guys. Like, his buddy's super chill. He was actually really nice when I was first talking to him. He was talking about, yeah, it's a rough time of year. He was like some people like to celebrate the passings of loved ones by going out and drinking, and I suggest to all you young kids, you just don't fucking do that, because that's not how you want to handle stuff. But apparently he was, celebrating or mourning the anniversary of his brother's passing. So as he, like, got drunk for the night, I guess he just got more and more emotional. So I went inside because Jeff said, hey, there's a guy without shoes on. And I'm like, oh, I wonder who it could be. And I'm like, damn it, I have to not like this guy now. Because he was kind of personable, like, when I first met him, when I was checking his ID.
But when you take the shoes and socks off...
He was wearing flip-flops.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah,
okay.
It's, yeah.
He was ready to go there.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, man, you got to put those on. I was like, bro, I like to drink barefoot. I get it. He was like, okay, sorry, man. Like, I'll put them back. And he listened. And then I was like, okay, like, one more time. And I told his buddies, I was like, if I see it again, you guys got to close them out, and I'm going to throw them out. Now, I'm trying to be as fair as possible. 5 minutes later, he just takes his shoes back off. And I was like, hey, sorry, man, you got to go now. And he goes, oh, shit, okay, man. And he's actually really fucking cooperative, which is the weird part. Like, no struggle to get him out of the bar. His buddies were like, hey, sorry, man. Like, one guy was staying really sober because he's like, I'm going to keep an eye on him. His other buddy was kind of drinking. He's like, all right, I'll close out the tab. And I was like, okay, sober guy, come outside with him and hang out here, because it's like, hey, sorry, man, here's the rule. I'm throwing you out. Like, I'm not throwing him out, but I'm escorting him. I'm like, you can't walk back inside, man. And he goes, no problem. He never even tries to go back inside. His buddy is closing out the tab, but forgets his ID. But so anyways, I sit this guy down at the tables, and I'm just back to checking IDs, and I'm like, hey, man, like, sit right here and just don't let anybody, and then don't bug anybody. Then his buddy goes, shit, I gotta grab my ID and close out too. His other buddy leaves him alone. And I was like, okay, no big deal. The guy's been cooperating just fine. But then as soon as I look away and I'm just checking IDs, he grabs someone's drink and starts drinking it. And I'm like, man, why do you have to be a fucking asshole now? And that's when it becomes that, like, shit, now I actually have to, like, throw you off of, like, physically, like, throw you off the ground. So look, the good thing was, like, this guy was, like, about my height, but maybe, like, a $130, $140, like, not a big guy, So once, like, the guy who he takes the drink from is trying to confront him, and I go, hold on, he's being drunk, I apologize, like, I'll get you another drink, I'm throwing him out of here, and this, and he goes, oh, shit, okay, thanks, man. And so I go to take the drink from the guy, and that's when he actually starts to push back and shove, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? I then, like, when you're around this enough, and you're in front of people that have squared up, or people, like, if you're in a boxing gym all day and you have hands in front of you, get to learn how to react inside a small space. Yeah. You also are, like, around a lot of people who tell you, like, stuff to look for. You also get trained with people that go, like, when you've gotten to work with, like, law enforcement and military and other, like, high level, like, guys that train special forces in the military. They teach you things to look out for, and you learn to, like, hey, if a person reaches for their pocket, you don't let them pull out what's in there. Yeah. You don't let, and so I'm just like, what the fuck? And then he immediately puts his right hand into his pocket, and I go, shit! Well, can't have that happen. My left hand catches the wrist, and I push the hand into the pocket. I hip bump in. I pop my right hand arm over behind the elbow, clasp hands, and I push my hand into his pocket, because if you push or you pull on a drunk person, they're going to pull back. Does that make sense? So natural reaction of a person, like, and it's something you learn in judo for self-defense when you're defending yourself. Like if you're defending yourself, like, and that person puts their hand on you, you create a reaction to react behind, and that's a big thing that you learn through self-defense and jiu-jitsu. So when he does pull the hand out, when his hand had gone into the pocket, he had gone ahead and, like, just pressed the release on this and popped it open. Like, so as we pulled the knife out, the blade was coming out, and that's when I put the knife up behind his arm, disarmed, I put the knife into my pocket, and I introduced him to the pavement.
Mother Earth.
Yeah, Mother Earth, Mother Pavement, as they say in Russia. But no, so and it was just one of those, like, shit, sorry, man. And at that point, the officer that was in his car across the street comes up and goes, all right, well, that happened, huh? And I'm like, yeah, sorry, man. Like, he had a knife, he tried to stab me, and I'm still just like, as soon as I put him onto the ground, I was like, sorry, buddy. And I just go back to checking IDs. And I'm just like, can y'all just like promise me that no one else is going to give me a hard time and just pull your fucking IDs out so we can get through this? And I see like 20 people reach in their pockets and pull out fucking IDs. And I'm like, cool, thanks, guys. And I'm talking to the officer, and he's like, do you want to press charges? And I'm like, man, he's just drunk having a bad time. Like, I was like, no, man, like, sorry. Like, I was like, if you need to take him in because he pulled a knife on me, he's like, well, since you say it like that, yeah, I do have to take him in. But I didn't press any charges and stuff like that. He was just a dumb, drunk asshole. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, bouncing is only dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And I was never the kind of bouncer to just, like, hit a person first. I was always just like, oh, hey, like, I know how to handle myself. It's not the first time I took a knife from somebody. It was just like the coolest knife I took from somebody. Like, I was like, usually you take like those cheap little dingy like REI knives off of people and shit. I'm like, oh, what the fuck's that gonna do?
Well, this
like,
has got some heft to it.
But this has some heft to it, and this is like one of those things where it's like, you know, and you hear about bouncers that get stabbed, and it's because they simply don't know which way to step. They simply don't know like which way to have their hands in front of them.
Plus that
they
inside wrist control,
like,
you know, grabbing that inside wrist and then getting that grip on your own
it even becomes like if I was a regular guy who just went to grab him or square up with him, I'd be walking into a knife. And it's one of those things where it's like, shit, yeah, if I didn't know what to do, I'd get stabbed.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, man, I should really start doing PTs more so I don't need this like extra $140 that I would, or like $100 I get from bouncing, you know, like. Yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of like one of like the cooler knives that I got.
And then
from, like,
you told the story to Hoyce, and he said,
so Hoyce Gracie was in town doing seminars,
right?
And I was like, yeah, hey, Hoyce Gracie, the shit I've been doing. He goes, wait, what? And like I told him about the thing. He goes, well, that's fucking badass, man. And yeah, he autographed it. Jason Colbert helped get it autographed, and then I took some like clear coat and like
made sure
I was like
forever.
sick. Yeah, I'm keeping that forever.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that is a great story, and it's just like, you know, MMA fighters and MMA coaches of all walks of life all over the country probably have bounced at some point. It is just like a natural. It's late at night. You can train during the day. It's
man,
like,
I don't have many other skills. Like I don't like. I mean, I've tried.
Kevin was a bouncer for a while. I don't know. I don't think he's still doing that. But he was working as a bouncer for a while.
Yeah, it was so funny at the GOAT. I actually got Dalton Taylor a job there to bounce.
Yeah.
I got like quite a few of my buddies to like get bouncing gigs there. Yeah,
that is not the place you want to be on a Sunday night. If you're looking to stay out of drama or stay out of trouble.
I used to bounce at strip clubs. Like
honestly,
I had to pull some knives at strip clubs from people.
I've been all over Raleigh. I've drank in a lot of shitty bars, and I will say I don't think there's any place that's more constantly on the edge of disaster than the GOAT. Like the vibe in there is always like really desperate. Like at any moment it could go off.
Time bomb of desperation.
At any moment it could just fucking erupt into chaos. Like it is.
It's such a packed in bar. It is, but like
small.
The mystery beer night, man, would bring. Yeah, that's the thing. It was a Sunday night. Like the Sundays were a packed night. The mystery beer nights was just always a madhouse, and I'm just like, God damn it! But I learned, like, you know, it's also a skill set of like, hey, if like some bouncers are just assholes to people off the bat.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want to do if you're a bouncer. Like, to me, I'm always like, no, like, set a good atmosphere. Like, set a good vibe. I'm not there to hit on chicks. I'm not there to, like, try and get into fights with dudes. I want people to have a fun time, and I want other people to feel safe. Like, if someone's an asshole, you get them out of there. Like, that's it. Like, remove problems, and then we become bigger problems. Bad bouncers start problems off the bat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And get themselves into more problems.
Yeah.
Like you said, get stabbed, get maced, or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever been maced?
By the cops, yeah.
They were coming to break something up at the bar? Or
No.
This in your private life?
No, yeah, this was at outside of a party, not Wolf Creek. It was
Notorious.
No, like it was around like because I always lived around like NC State, like as a kid and like growing up, and no, so I was in this was pre-Air Force, maybe, yeah, like it's just after high school. And a fight breaks out in front of my buddy. Yeah, Man, I don't know if it was like before I was 21 or not. Anyways, like, because we used to do some wild parties.
Tenant
yeah,
Fightcast does not officially condone underage drinking.
No, I definitely don't. No. Anyway, like, yeah, we were just throwing like a dumb party with a bunch of just assholes and young people, and we were, and I mean, like,
Wolf Creek's notorious.
It wasn't Wolf Creek. It was up Tryon Road. It was, like they used to have like Cooler Palooza near there and shit like that. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
You're not talking about Wildwoods, are you?
No, maybe what? Wait, fuck. Anyways,
I used to live in Wildwoods.
I'll have to look up the apartment name because I can't. I'm CTEing out right now. But anyways, I broke up a fight that had started between like my friends and another group of guys, and I go to like pull this guy out, and I'm trying to. Like, he was getting his ass beat, righteously so. He was being an asshole. He was getting curb stomped by a couple of guys that I kind of knew, and I was breaking up and pulling him out of there, and then he swung at me, and I went, "What the fuck?" And I hip tossed him, and I put him in knee on belly, and I was like, "Bro, chill the fuck out. I'm trying to help you." But when the cops pulled up, they only see me hip tossing this guy and going to the ground. And I'm like, "Hey, can I get help? Holy shit, this is mace." And this cop had this thing of mace like this far from my face. And I'm like, "Wow, that looks like mace." And you ever seen the stream of mace come right out of the barrel as it hits your eye? It's not fun, man. No. And dude, they blasted me. As it turns out, I'm pretty good with getting maced, and I just stand up and go, "What the fuck is happening?" Like, did it burn? It felt awful. Yeah, but I knew I wasn't. Like, other people were running, going like, "Officer, like he didn't do anything." And I mean, I was wearing a white Lacoste polo shirt, and this fucker was like orange
with
like,
mace.
My skin was like. I looked like I had a bad spray
like
tan on,
acid,
bro. Like,
acid bath.
And I am just like, are you fucking kidding me? I go walking back inside the party, and it is just absolute horror on people. And these are a bunch of people I knew from like high school, and like these people, a lot of people I knew from high school, people I've gotten to know through like the party scene. I'm just like, all right, I gotta get this fucking off of me. And I'm grabbing like the jug of milk out of my buddy's fridge, and I'm like, fuck. And I'm like in the shower, we're just like pouring it, and there's a picture floating somewhere of me in my underwear with like the officers coming inside, and like I was like, "Someone grab some more fucking milk," and like they're like going into like other people's apartments, and I had no idea what was going on. They're like, "We need fucking milk," and like I'm just milk bathing myself in my buddy's like bathroom, and the cop comes in and apologizes, and I'm like, "Man, you're just doing your job, but what the fuck? Like, could you have asked a question? Like, come on, man.
Mace
like,
first, ask questions
what
later.
the fuck? Like, could you not have seen that I was controlling the guy with like this?" And he was like, "No, I didn't." I was like, "Learn some jujitsu, asshole!" Like in
adopt a cop BJJ.
And support him, guys. But no, like there's a picture of me floating around somewhere, me in my underwear with like milk in my hand, where the cop
double
was like
fisting milk,
and I'm just like, "Thanks for the memories, guys." Like a bad Myrtle Beach photo. Yes, that's when I got. That's one of the times I got maced.
That is one crazy story. I like that one.
Yeah, I think I was probably 19.
19.
Yeah.
At Wolf Creek, man.
No, it wasn't Wolf Creek. It wasn't Wolf Creek. It was
I keep thinking it is.
I know.
It just sounds like a Wolf Creek story.
Yeah, dude, there were some bad ones. Like one of my buddies, I remember we're hanging out. He's like, "Oh, hey, man, what do you like?" I showed up at Wolf Creek for a party, and I run to an old friend of mine who's recently out of prison, and I was like, "Oh, what's up, dude? You're out." And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just stopped by my buddy's party." I'm like, "Sick! I think I'm going there too." "Oh, neat." And as we walk inside, he pulls out a gun and goes, "What's up, bitch? Thought I wouldn't come around." And I'm just like, like, what have I done?
I walked in with you.
Like, I'm like, man, like,
no,
like, cause he was there for the roommate of my buddy, like a friend of a friend. Like my buddies were at this house party, so it's like the friend of somebody that he was there after, and I was like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's
like,
fucked.
And I'm just like, well, hey, I am not here for this.
No, seriously.
You
it's
guys
like
have a
that
good
meme
night.
of Grandpa Simpson walking in and then taking the hat and putting it back on and walking right back out.
It was kind of like that. I was like, my bad, guys. This is y'all's problem, not mine. They're like, "Trevor, do something." I'm like, nope, not my problem.
Funny,
yeah.
Man. All right. So,
Sorry, but hey, man, the life of Trevor's a weird one.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that we did a whole episode on it, and there's still so many stories to tell.
I feel like I am. Like,
so
the more I
many.
talk about myself, I do feel like the Joe Dirt.
You do need to have like a
here.
memoir, like a memoir of some sort, where you kind of recount all these fight
A lot of my
stories.
memories are kind of like, on today's episode of It's Always Sunny in Raleigh, Trevor gets his ass beat.
Right.
And it's like, usually me getting my ass beat in the morning or like the end of the day, and like everything else is like kind of a blur.
But who
And I
knows
do,
what
like,
the next, because now you're going to be doing it internationally. So
Man.
you're going to have students fighting internationally, and you're going to be
well, I gotta be a lot. Well, like the
world.
good thing is that like I have to be a lot calmer in my approach.
Yes.
Like I kept like I don't know, I can't party like I used to, thanks to stuff, and so I think it's I don't know, I'm glad I kind of got all that dumb shit out of the way.
A little bit older,
like,
a little bit wiser.
I mean, I was still kind of out of control even up until
But
30,
you know what
like,
it's like to get maced.
yeah,
You
a
know?
couple times.
No, not a lot of people can say that. You know.
I've been stabbed, like
Yeah,
I've
you
been
can be
shot
like,
at,
really
like
big.
I'm just like, but it's like I'm not like a violent gangster. I just know how to put myself in bad places, like
Really
just
well.
very,
Really well.
very well, very good at fucking up, as people say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same.
No, you are far more adult and put together
So-
than I am.
No.
Talia
definitely
sees
not.
me trying to start a business, and she's like, "How are you alive? Like, how do you exist?" And I'm like, "Don't."
No, I'm floating. I'm going with the flow
I'm
most
just
of the time.
flowing with
Yeah.
life, man.
Yeah, I'm floating down the river most of the time myself.
Down the river Styx, man.
So I
But
first.
Dylan, like, I'm curious as to like, the more we get to hang out, and the more we get to meet. It's like, because I only know you through martial arts.
Right.
Like I met you as like a friend of Gene Kim. Happy 7-year anniversary, Gene Kim.
And happy marriage.
That's
Motherfucker
right. Gene Kim got married, by the way. What the fuck, bro? Like,
got hitched.
yeah, like
No, he called me like 2 weeks before he got married, and he was like, "Hey, I'm getting married in 2 weeks." I'm like, "Okay." And he was like, "I'd love for you to be there. I understand if it's too short notice." And I was working that thing in Maryland, so I was like, "I can't.
Yeah.
I'm booked up." But congratulations, Gene.
Gene Kim
on the
getting
nuptials.
married. Yeah,
So
that's
weird.
right.
But
That's what, yeah.
what you were saying.
Yeah, no, yeah, I got to learn recently that like you have like you started commentary through the Smash League and stuff like
Yes.
that and video game, and I was like, so I only know Dylan through martial arts, not the first half of your journey. And, I think I met you briefly at Jawbreakers when you were working with Gustavo. Like,
Yes.
I stopped in to work out and I just went, "What's up, dude? Gustavo's training," and I just went in the back room to like hit a bag or something.
Yeah. I remember
Like-
Elbowgate coming around
Elbowgate,
there
yeah.
and giving he gave me my first striking private that wasn't centered around punching.
Yeah.
The first kick I ever threw on a bag was with his instructions. So
Yeah, he and I go way back.
yeah, he's an all-time classic Raleigh person too. Like somebody that it just seems like everybody has trained with.
Mm-hmm. Now he's out at the MMA lab in like Vegas as like a paid sparring partner. He's a pro MMA fighter now.
The first thing I
Yeah.
commentated was actually women's basketball in
Huh.
high school. So in high school I was very much I was
Wow, so this goes way back for you.
sort of. I kind of wasn't trying to. So I in middle school I played football, and in high school I played football, but I never identified with any other sports. To take it even back a step further, I first got involved with the martial arts when my mom signed me up for karate at like age 9 or 8, and I took Shotokan karate with the White brothers, who are still in operation today. My little brother is going there now for Shotokan, so my family really believes in karate. But I got to an age around like
I'm sorry your family's in a cult.
10 or 11.
We can get through this together.
I didn't stay in it. I didn't stay in it. My mom got very upset with karate when I started competing in tournaments, and she had not ever competed in tournaments, but she was experienced with karate herself.
Oh, dope.
And so I started competing, and she became like karate super mom and wanted to take me to all these tournaments and stuff.
Huh.
And I got disqualified from 3 different tournaments for roughness because I was bigger than most kids my age, and I hit really hard.
So you would just sidekick and they'd go, "Mah!"
That happened.
Yeah.
I had sidekicked I think it was a girl in the chest, and she had like passed out. And they were like, "You're disqualified." And there was one time, it was a large tournament, like a very large tournament. I can't remember, but I remember this day very well because I'd never seen my mom more angry. But it was the match for 3rd place, and it was this kid that I knew from school. He went to a different karate gym, but I knew him from school.
Yeah.
And I knew I was a little bit bigger than him, so I was like, I gotta take it easy. And he just ran straight forward, and I just jabbed, and his nose went, and my fist went like, even as a kid, I can remember that sound of like him running straight onto my fist,
fuck.
and his nose just erupted, fountain of blood. And the ref declares me the winner and doesn't disqualify me. And then I'm getting ready to go fight for first place. And they come onto the mat as the match is about to start and stop it and disqualify me and give me the third place trophy.
Wow.
And my mom was lit. She took me out of karate the next day. She was like, "You're done." And I was like, "All right, I guess I'm done." But I remember that was like my introduction into the world of martial arts. And through that, I became obsessed with martial arts movies. And I always have been to this day. I'm obsessed with Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. But that was kind of like what martial arts transitioned into for me, is just watching movies. And then I started playing other sports. I started playing soccer, which I hated, baseball, which I hated, and then football, which was a little bit like martial arts. So I got really into that in middle school. And then going into high school, I was doing a lot of football training during the spring, but I wanted to find something else. And I was like, I'll go out for wrestling because that seems a little bit like football. There's a similar strength conditioning program they allow you to use. I went out for the first day of wrestling practice, and they had us run 7 miles. And I remember being like, not coming back to this. Like, I'll never see any of you again. I'll never see any of you again. I went to a couple workouts with them because they would allow football players to come through and work out with them. I even I had them show me some things, but I never tried out for the team proper. I never wrestled a match or had a singlet or anything like that. So it's hard for me to say that I ever had any kind of experience with wrestling until I got into jiu-jitsu years and years later. But even the limited amount of shit that they showed me in those like 2 or 3 workouts I did with them, I ended up using in a self-defense situation in my junior year. So that shows you how powerful wrestling is. One technique in a situation like that can really make the difference if somebody doesn't know what they're doing.
You grab a person, you put them here, like it's very effective. It's not
just a simple hip heist. Just a simple hip heist is all. That's it. That's all they showed me, and it was what I went to in my junior year when I had an altercation with another student. But the way that I got into commentary was I was bored as fuck during the off season for football, and I started doing drama class because there was this girl that I was into, and she was in drama. So I was like, I'm gonna take drama, and it was the first year they had drama at my high school. And the teacher for the drama class was the coolest motherfucker of all time. He's my favorite teacher to this day. Still talk to him every now and then on Facebook.
Oh, neat.
He was my English teacher for most of high school too, but he just really was like, he just pulled me aside and was like, look, man, you've got a serious talent for a very particular set of things. And there are certain things you can do to make a living off this, but most of it's going to be you doing this because you do it for fun or something that you enjoy. So you need to figure out what you're going to do. As far as like, he was like, you have a strong personality and a strong voice. And he's like, I want you to go to the USCL campus, which is like the community college at the time in my town. He's like, I want you to take broadcast journalism there. And I was taking drama and broadcast journalism, and little by little I was taking less and less math, English, economics, and it became all drama. I still probably to this day have more drama credit than anybody that's attended my high school because I had like 7 credits in 3 years of taking the class. And then I got credits in broadcast journalism, and I was doing the broadcast journalism stuff. The broadcast journalism professor calls my high school and it's like, this kid is doing broadcast journalism courses and is trying to get into sports commentary. We'll come out and put your shows on public access for this amount of money if all of our students can work the production. So it wasn't just about me, it was about everybody in that class being a camera operator, being a switchboard operator. I was the secondary commentator to the guy who was the commentary professor's assistant. Essentially, he was a coach of basketball. So it was immediately like a person who's super knowledgeable, and then my job was just to like fill in with stats and do reads and be like kind of entertaining, which is the same role I occupy now as a commentary on this day. So I did a couple of these women's basketball games, and I wasn't really super into it because I don't like basketball very much, and I wanted to do football, but then I was playing, so I couldn't do that. And then late in my sophomore year, after the season had already ended, I got into an automobile accident, and my shoulder got torn. So I couldn't play football. And I thought I'd be able to play my senior year, but the injury just persisted so long that I just couldn't essentially do any athletic activity. So I started commentating the football games. Around this time, I also started playing Smash because I was so competitive and I needed some kind of way to like compete in something. And the video game club at my high school had just started.
There was a video game club?
Yeah. Well, there were clubs at my high school, and the clubs were like very limited in what they were. But if you got 17 people together, you could start any club.
Huh.
So they started in my freshman year, my sophomore year, can't remember which, they started both an anime club and a video game club, which had never been done before at the school. And so I joined.
I know those were a thing at school.
They were at mine. You know, they let you start any club you could as long as you get 17 people and a teacher to say they would be the leader of that club or whatever.
Interesting.
You know, the chaperone essentially, because all the clubs was after school stuff. So like on Wednesdays I'd go to a video game club and I would just play Madden with people. Like it's just me and like 30 black guys in a corner and we're playing Madden. And then I look over in the corner and there's people playing Smash and I'm like, I know some of those people from music class. And I'm just like, this game looks fun. Is that Mario? Like, you know, I know Mario. Yeah. So that was how I got introduced into Smash. This is like 2008. And in 2008, there was a new Smash game coming out, for those of you that are uninitiated. It was called Brawl on the Wii. It was a big deal because there hadn't been one since 2001 when Melee came out, and it was also the first next-gen 3D Smash game. So I was like, fuck learning Melee, I'll just do this and learn Brawl and I'll be a commentator in this game. And that worked for a while, and then eventually Melee just outshone it. It became bigger as a game. People weren't really interested in Brawl in the long term, so I switched to playing Melee in like 2010. That was when commentary really began for me, which is why I say I've been doing this for 10 years, because that was when I first started to get paid. Like I remember to the day, the time that I realized I was getting paid for commentary. I had done like 3 or 4 hours of commentary for Melee, and someone walked up to me and handed me a Chipotle burrito. And I was like,
sick.
I was like, this is the first time somebody's ever given me something in exchange for me doing this, so I must be going in the right direction. And then sure enough, after that I started getting paid more and becoming a true professional commentator. Then I started having my own production and running my own tournaments out of Raleigh, and I kind of put the Raleigh Melee scene kind of on the map.
You were telling me about like how you start, because we ran into Giovanni Hyde,
Yes.
and who was the, and there was another, fuck, I forgot his name, he was cool as shit, like before the Conflict show.
Yeah,
and they recognized, like, because they were Smash players as well, and then you were bringing up all these players, and I just went, what the hell? And you started shows like, and so was that when you started doing them like at your house when you had people coming down?
So like 2012, maybe 2011, I ran small tournaments, what you might consider comparable to inter-club sparring.
Right.
Out of my grandmother's house.
Yes.
So I would have like I'd have like 20, 30 people in my grandma's 3-bedroom house, circulating TVs, like 9-10 CRT TVs. And just running tournaments for fun, just so I could have people to play with. Because in Charlotte, back then, there was fucking nobody to play with. Now there's like 100 people in the Charlotte scene for Melee, for this game that has been out since 2001, which is pretty crazy. But back then, I would have to drive an hour and a half to play somebody who was the nearest person, and he was also like legitimately the best player in the world. And that helped because it introduced me to more people that were higher level in the community and got me better commentary gigs. But when I would play him, I would learn nothing. It would be like on your first day as a white belt sparring like Cody Malte for hours and hours and hours. You're not learning anything. You're just
like fuck, man,
right,
how? Yeah.
Essentially. I'm running these small tournaments at my grandma's house. Somebody who works at a hotel is like, I can get you a ballroom at a hotel, and then it kind of evolves from there. But by the time I moved to Raleigh, I moved here originally because I had met so many people in this Melee Smash scene that were from this area, and I knew this area had a strong scene. So a friend of mine was like, hey, I'm moving to Raleigh, and I was like, I'll be your roommate, I'll go. So I sold like everything I had to pay for the first 2 months rent, moved here, and just started playing Smash, and just let everything happen from there. I would just wake up every morning, drive somewhere to play somebody different in Smash, and before long I met somebody who was like, I can get you a job where I work, boom, I have a job. I know somebody who's looking for a roommate. I get an apartment. You know, it just it evolved from there. Now, while all this is going on,
like Craigslist, man.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, I mean, the community is so, it's like martial arts. The community is so fucking tight, and Melee is one of those games that came out before there was online play.
Right.
So if you wanted to play it, you had to physically go to somebody's house or physically meet up with somebody in a real life space, be social with them, have conversation with them, hang out with them. It's an aspect that isn't prevalent in today's world of gaming, but I think it really helped me meet a lot of different kind of people that I would have never have met growing up in my town. Like, my hometown has a population of like 2,800 people when I was born. It's a lot bigger now.
Yeah.
But when I was born, it's like 2,800 people. And I just only pretty much met one type of person my entire life. And then when I met Smash players and started traveling all over the country to play, I was exposed to so many different cultures and so many different people. And I never met anyone in the Smash scene that wasn't pretty forthgiving with their time and their like skills and willing to teach people or make people better. And that was something that I found when I went into the martial arts community that was very similar.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So while all this is going on,
I never got into video games, so I always saw it as a not very like interpersonal kind of
fighting games are. So, you know, online games are not, but fighting games, if you want to compete in fighting games, whether it's Tekken or Street Fighter, eventually you're going to get to the point where you want to play for real. You got to go to someone. You got to go to a venue where there are a bunch of people signed up, walking around, carrying their sticks, whatever the case may be, and you've got to actually sit beside someone and play them. And a lot of times, even if you come in there with 0 people with you and friends, you're going to leave knowing somebody. You know, it's the same as going to a fight, right? Yeah, so while all this is going on, I'm focusing on this. All my attention is going into this. Like, relationships, all this stuff is kind of falling by the wayside, including my health. So in high school, I'm like 225, and I don't have abs. I'm not the world's greatest athlete. I was a defensive lineman, you know, but I was strong. I was lifting weights, but I didn't know how to do any of that stuff because when I was in the football team, we had a weightlifting coach who just racked the weights, and then you just sat down, knocked out your reps, and then you're like, what do I do next? You know, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't have an interest in learning back then because I was just weightlifting because it was required to play football. So all of this shit's going on. I haven't done any kind of physical activity since I had my shoulder injury, which at this point is like 8-9 years ago. And I'm just like, wake up one morning, and I'm like 335 or 340.
Damn,
and dude. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is going on, you know? And I was just like, shit's got to stop. So, like that day, I went to go work out for the first time. And I just didn't think I could do anything with my shoulder, so I just ran on a treadmill. And then I had a friend who started working out with me and started helping me, and he was like, you know, you should find something that makes working out fun for you. Find a way to make it fun, because that's what I do. He was a rower. He was like, when I found rowing, I was like, this is the thing I know to do that makes it fun. So I started relentlessly looking for something. And I remember I was watching Rumble in the Bronx. Or no, I was watching Meals on Wheels, Jackie Chan movie, and there's that opening scene where they wake up and they start training together. I'm like, maybe I'll just get a heavy bag or something, just start hitting a heavy bag. And then I was like, heavy bags are like $200, and then I have an apartment, and I'd have to mount it, and I'd have to clear it with the landlord. That just seems really complicated. Maybe I'll just try to find a gym to work out at that's a boxing workout gym. And then I started like the YouTube rabbit hole deep dive researching, trying to figure out where I wanted to go, because I had all this time in the Smash community that taught me like the value of a community. So I knew that I wanted to be in the right kind of gym. This is also around the time I started listening to Joe Rogan podcasts and watching fights on the internet. I started to become more interested in boxing in general. And I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to just do jiu-jitsu or just go to an MMA gym. But at that time, there were no gyms that had MMA gym in the name. It was all Hoist Gracie this, Gracie that, Gi this. And I was just like really intimidated by the gi, and I still to this day, after like 5 years of training jiu-jitsu, am intimidated by the gi and consider myself to be a white belt in the gi, even though I have a blue belt. But I found Jawbreaker, and I think by the time I got to Jawbreaker, I had already lost some weight. I think I was like 280 pounds or 290. So I had already been working out for like 4 or 5 months on my own, just trying to like do cardio. And over the year that I trained there, I went from like 290 to 215.
Damn.
And I was just dieting hard. I was in there every night. Because I immediately, first time I stepped in there, and I watched like Donnie Mitchell spar and a couple other people, I was like,
Donnie Marshall?
Oh, Donnie Marshall.
I was like,
I watched Donnie Marshall spar the first time I was there, and I was like, this is not a cardio kickboxing gym. This is a real fucking boxing gym like in the movies, like in Rocky. And I was like, I'm in the right place. And I just started going there every single fucking night. And I got into pretty decent shape, and then I heard about a place opening up called Elbowgate. And I was like, with all due respect, Remy, I've loved it here the past year. My contract's up because he makes you do like 6 months or a year. And I was like, my contract's up. I've always wanted to do grappling, so I'm going to go try it. And he's like, okay, cool. He's always been really cool about that. And I was really worried. Like, I was anxious to have that conversation because I never quit a gym before or broke out with a gym before, but he made it super cool. I went and contacted Elevate. Shazil got back with me because he was doing the memberships at that time. Invited me in for like a private. I came in and did a private with Cody and this other guy who it was his first time there. And immediately I was like, this is what I should have been doing my entire life. Like, I should have just stuck with the wrestling, and I should have just stayed grappling in high school and should have just done this. And that's how I started training at Elevate. Immediately deep dived on jiu-jitsu. I was doing a lot of striking. I was kind of sparring with people. You know, I sparred with Hannah and Dewan and Cheyenne and a lot of people.
It's a hell of a group to get your first sparring kicks in.
Oh, well, I mean,
Jesus.
Maybe like a month or two into me doing striking sparring, Hannah Cyphers like almost knocked me out with a head kick, trying to kick me in the chest or trying to kick me in the body, and I just ducked into the head kick. And I remember almost getting knocked out, and I was like, almost getting knocked out, like everything went like this, and I was like, whoa, that's what it's like to get hit by a UFC fighter. She had just gotten signed to the UFC, I think, or she was getting ready to go fight for Invicta for the first time. And
no, she never got to fight for Invicta.
Right, yeah, she went straight to
She was supposed to go to Invicta, but she went to the UFC instead.
Yeah, so she had just signed the Invicta fight that fell through, that didn't happen. So I was like, that's what it's like to get kicked by a professional fighter. And there was a time where I was really trying to get into good enough shape to like get to 205 or maybe even like 195 and take an amateur MMA fight. But then I started doing the media thing, and then I started like watching people that I knew very closely and very personally that were way better than me in there in the sparring room just get tooled up on shows. Like, there was like a 4-month period where every training partner I had either got knocked out or got submitted really early. And it was just like, it dissuaded me. It dissuaded me in a way from pursuing that. I just kept training until I got injured almost 2 years ago now. But I just remember being like, damn, I probably can't do this. Like, I just had that realization that I wasn't going to go pro or anything like that, and that I probably should have started sooner. And there is still that lingering thought in my mind that maybe I would like to do an amateur fight.
Are you thinking about doing like jiu-jitsu competitions again?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm getting ready to do now. Like, I'm training jiu-jitsu every day that I can. You know, every day that I don't do strength conditioning, I try to go do some jiu-jitsu. So I'm training like twice a week, 3 times a week now. And I want to get to the point where I'm training like 4 or 5 days a week and can do like a full hour of rolling, and then I'll enter a tournament again. I really miss competing in jiu-jitsu for sure. And I even want to do like PKBs and stuff, but it's almost like I'm starting over again. I'm easing myself back in to the waters once again, you know, and just seeing like, here's what I can do, and here's the point where I get to when my knee starts compromising. And it was compromising, and then it just suddenly started strengthening, and It hasn't been. So I'm testing myself a little bit further and further, but I'll actually tell the story about how I legitimately became interested in the UFC. I was working at a motorcycle dealership at the time, and I had watched a lot of UFC fights as a kid, but I watched them in the same way that I watched WWE. So my stepdad was like an indie scene pro wrestler for a long time in South Carolina and Florida and Louisiana. And I grew up in the wrestling business, so I really understood like what a work was and the flow of the match and the storytelling elements and all the things that people say make it fake. I understood that all of that was very real, but what was going on from a young age. And I remember seeing Tito and Chuck, a promo for Tito and Chuck, and my whole family was there, and I was like, have you guys ever watched this? This is crazy stuff. And my uncle was like, that's fake. And he was like, UFC's fake. It's just like WWE. And I'm like, I don't know. It looks pretty real. It doesn't look like they're wrestling to me. And I'm like, 12, 13 years old. And he's like, if they can fake what they do in WWE, they can fake anything. And I'm like, so I watched them, but I watched them strictly for entertainment. I wasn't watching for technique or martial arts. I didn't necessarily even look at it as a martial art until years and years later. But I watched Tito and Chuck. I watched Rampage come to the UFC and that season of Tough. And it just kind of washed over me as a kid. It didn't really grab me. But I was working at a motorcycle dealership, and there was this guy, Shay Spence, who was super into MMA. Watched every single fight card, talked about them at work, and I would just hear him yammering on. And one day he mentions that there's this Irish guy who's starting to fuck people up. I think this is like 2014. And he's like, you got to be wary of this Irish guy, Conor McGregor. He's going to be the next big thing. And I'm like, an Irish guy? Like an Irish professional athlete? Like, I was like, what's that look like? Because we're good at soccer, but fighting is not our forte. We have a reputation of being boxers, but not particularly strong boxers. Like in the movies, the Irish guy boxer is always the guy who's getting his ass beat throughout the almost a very Rocky-esque person, except they don't win.
Right.
Like Rocky, they don't have America's heart at the end of the movie. They're usually just like drunk guys who can take a punch. But when I first heard about Conor, I was like, oh, this is interesting. An Irish person who's like becoming a UFC superstar.
Got so many people into MMA and boxing and fitness in general. And I was like, it's so weird to me where like I've just always been into it. I'm like, y'all are getting into it because of this guy? Like
I remember the promo for him versus Jose where he's ripping the picture of Jose. And I was like, I'll go watch that. That seems like a cool fight. It'll be a cool first UFC fight to watch.
Draw eyes, man.
And I didn't know how to stream fights illegally, and I definitely didn't want to pay $50 for a pay-per-view, so I was like, I'm going to Buffalo Wild Wings because I hear that they show UFC fights there. I drove to the Buffalo Wild Wings in Concord. I was visiting my grandmother this weekend.
And this was this the Mendez fight, or was because like the Aldo fight happened after the Mendez fight, which made it bigger.
Right. I wasn't watching when Mendez happened.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I heard that he won. I heard that he won. And he was going to fight for the belt, and I was like, I want to see him fight for the belt.
I remember
this guy's going to fight for the belt.
I want to hear how it was like for you.
That
like
tangentially heard of.
I remember the Conor Aldo fight vividly, like the bar I was at.
Oh,
and
this
where
is
you're at. Like,
this is the night.
You're at Buffalo Wild, so I can imagine like Buffalo Wild Wings was packed.
I walked into this Buffalo Wild Wings in Concord, which is not a particularly big city,
right.
And it was fucking packed out.
Uh-huh.
And I remember them being like, "All right, so we have a long wait, and we can't guarantee you a table or a seat at the bar. But if you want to just hang out and wait in the lobby right here until a table becomes available, you can hang out." And I could see a TV from there, so I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there waiting on a table. Pay-per-view card starts. The entire fucking card goes by, including Rockman versus Whitehold and all that shit.
Yeah.
It all happens like while I'm waiting on a table. Like
wow.
It's like hours and hours of me just sitting there like this watching. I've never watched UFC before, really. As an adult. Now I'm an adult. I've done countless psychedelics. I'm a lot smarter than I was when I was a kid. I'd like to think, or at least a little bit more self-aware. So I'm watching it and noticing things that I could have never noticed as a kid, and being like, "Damn, this sport is fucking awesome." Especially Gunnar Nelson backpack. I can't remember if it was Damian Maia versus Gunnar Nelson. I think it was Gunnar Nelson getting backpacked by Damian Maia. That happened. I was like, "Damn, that's really cool." Like grappling seems really cool. Everybody else seemed really bored by it, but I thought it was dope. And then Rockhold beating the absolute shit out of Weidman was brutal.
That was brutal.
And I was like, damn, the sport's a little dangerous. And then it was main event time. Right before the main event starts, the walkout starts, girl comes over to me and she's like, "Hey, we have you a table, but you'd have to share it with another gentleman. Like, you'd be at opposite ends." I'm like, "That's fine." I get there and it's just an older guy. And he's just like a super old blue-collar guy. He's got the beer beside him. And I'm like, I'm gonna get one of those. I start, ordering my food. I'm like, I'm finally at my fucking table, and the walkouts start, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, what kind of people watch this shit?
Your fucking drink order and fights over.
And I saw for the first and only time in my life a Reebok kit. Someone wearing an actual Reebok.
Isn't it so? It's so weird to see those. I've only seen like one or two, and I'm like, I mean, I've seen a lot of them. Like my friends have them from like cornering or being like at like fight nights where I'm like, no, that you bought that just to watch McGregor fight.
$9.99 or $99 is how much they were back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was a McGregor fight kit, and I was like, wow. Because even, I had been listening to Joe Rogan for like 4 or 5 months at this point, and I had heard Schaub relentlessly making fun of the fight kits and how nobody's ever going to wear them in public, and I was like, damn, there's a guy in a fight kit. Like,
Conor McGregor guys wear fucking fight kits.
And I remember Aldo walking out, and I was like, damn, I've heard this guy is like a straight murderer, but he looks a little bit nervous. And then Conor walks out, and I'm like, okay, I can see why people like this guy. Like, he clearly has, personality. He clearly has a big following. He looks like kind of larger than life. Has that like Ultimate Warrior kind of effect. And then the fight starts, and he fucking knocked him out in one punch.
13 seconds.
And I couldn't believe how much like a movie it was.
Right.
I was like, wow, this sport is fucking nuts. Like, this guy just caught the golden snitch and won the game in one fucking exchange. Like, yeah. I was addicted from that point on. I was addicted to MMA.
At Woody's in Cary, which is like a 2-story sports bar, and they have like this entire wall of TVs. I remember being there, like friends from high school, and it's like people that have never it was like one of those things where I'm like, you guys have never come to Woody's for fights, and now you're coming here for these Conor McGregor fights. What the fuck? And I was like, no, I'm betting on Aldo. Because like I was like, I knew like Conor McGregor was like a good thing, but like we all see how he's
I don't think anybody could have predicted.
No one could have predicted that. Like,
I mean, honestly, after that night, I became addicted to watching MMA, and people in the gym.
Because it's that oh shit knockout, like the oh shit knockouts that happen in those moments that happen in MMA are second to none compared to other combat sports.
When I started training at Elbowgate, people referenced me as this person with like an encyclopedic knowledge of MMA. And it wasn't really because I had grown up watching MMA like most people probably think I did. I literally just, like, after that knockout, I was like, I have to learn how to appreciate this, so I'm going to watch every single Jose Aldo fight. And then I was like, damn, it's really impressive that guy, that he finished him in 30 seconds. So then I went back and watched all of Conor's fights, all the Cage Warriors. Then I heard about Pride. I mean, it was just a complete rabbit
like
hole.
When you started, like, there's this whole, like, where I've seen everything just come up from, like, the scratch, and you saw it. Like,
I was catching up.
Yeah,
I had to binge watch for months and months and months.
I was trying to catch friends up on those fights, and, like, I have so many friends going, I fucking told you who's going to win. I'm like, you've never thrown a punch in your life. You don't know shit. Fuck you. Like, and it got me mad. I was like, it's good what Conor's done for, like, getting eyes on the sport, but, like, it was annoying to be like, I'm a nobody, but it was still like, fuck, you guys have never seen it, and now you guys like are obsessed with it. Like, you guys couldn't come to the gym with me 8 years ago. What the fuck? Like,
yeah, I mean, I heard about Ronda, and I thought that she was pretty cool because it was like different. It was like something that I'd never seen before, but it wasn't enough to like really hook me into the sport. But for some reason, not only the way Conor performed that night, but the way he talked about fighting itself, as if like
it's been wild for me to see Holly Holm where she is now, because I remember her as the chick that fought my old boxing coach. Like, that's how long ago. Like, I've seen like, and that it's wild to see like where it's crossed over and everything like that.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
yeah. By that time, I had seen Holly knock out Ronda as well, and I just remember something that Conor said. I don't remember exactly what the quote was, but something he made me realize. I was like, damn, this is the highest level of martial arts. That's a proven, like, it's a proving ground of martial arts. Like, I realized, like, this is the movie Bloodsport. Like, I loved the movie Bloodsport as a kid. Hey, USA! Like, I fucking love Bloodsport. Okay, USA. I'm like, yo, this fucking guy. Like, I'll never forget that horrifying looking man. But I love the movie Bloodsport, and I was like, damn, this is the real life version of Bloodsport, as close as you can get to it, where you have all these guys from all these different backgrounds, and here comes Conor, this guy who is not a natural athlete. Like, we know that now, and back then it was like, he's not a genetic freak of an athlete. He's kind of got some boxing, but he's also got some karate and some taekwondo and a little bit of fucking like sprawl, and he's scrambly as fuck. Like, he was truly like the first person that I really looked at in depth and was like, this person is mixing
There's
a lot of
there's
different
no other
martial
sport
arts.
you could be good at other than fighting.
I started to understand mixing. I started to understand the first part of MMA. I started to understand that you needed a little bit of everything to be successful, and that's when I became more appreciative of guys that were now recognized, that I recognize are more talented. But he was my favorite fighter for a long time because there was just that was that factor, that thing that got me into the sport was him. So I felt like a loyalty to him for such a long time. And I still get excited at the prospect of him fighting because of that. Even if he's completely washed now. Like, I don't do that anymore. Now that I do this for a living, I don't even pick fate. I don't want anyone to win the fight. I just want to watch the fight and for the fight to be good.
Yes.
But I wanted him to win. Like, back and then I was a fan. I was more of a fan. So I had a favorite and I wanted it to win. I was looking at it more like a team sport almost, where you pick a team and then you get behind your team. But now I don't look at MMA that way at all. I look at it as just like, I just want the fights to be good. I'll watch any fucking fight card. I don't care who's on it. I don't care if it's a local card full of guys with negative records. I don't care if it's street beefs. I don't care if it's World Star. You know, I'm going to watch it, and I just want to be entertained. And I just want to see the techniques on display.
The greatest thing about like martial arts is that it's not only great to watch, it's very easy to get into.
Yes.
You just have to show up. It's one of those things where it's like
once the spark was lit,
yeah.
It's all I cared about. And to this day, it's still the most important thing in my life. And the thing that I spend the most time doing is watching martial arts, actual martial arts, or still watching martial arts movies, still loving them. Over the coronavirus pandemic, when we were in lockdown, me and a bunch of my friends in Discord watched every single credited Jackie Chan movie ever, over 150 films.
I was hosting Thunderdome.
Watched all of them. Yeah, I mean, that would I would have loved to do that too. My Thunderdome was going to Anthony Edwards' house.
Didn't you come to Thunderdome?
I came to one.
You came to one of them. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
fun,
right. Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah, I was like, shit, you were there. That was a wild time. Like,
but yeah, I got really invested in the sport, and I just started. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know the history of it, and I knew before I even attended a live fight that eventually I wanted to do commentary, but I didn't know how to get my foot in the door for that. And then I met Gene, and Gene was like, I know how we can do this. And he just created a media platform for me like that for me to interview fighters. And he was like, just start interviewing fighters and making your own shit, and then eventually people will want you to
martial arts teaches you do stuff by fucking doing it.
Right. Yeah.
You start with step one, and it's wild. People don't realize how simple and basic is step one to, like, you got into commentating with it. Like, I mean, I got into announcing one night because someone was like, hey, Trevor, you talking to a mic, and I'm 3 beers deep after matching fights, and I'm like, okay. And,
right, and you were like, damn, that was a lot of fun.
And then I got onto the road with that shit real
because
quick.
At this time, I'm doing melee commentary like maybe once a month. That's a lot of work for melee because there's maybe one big melee tournament every 2 or 3 months. So if you're having pretty regularly commentary gigs, you're probably traveling a lot, you're flying a lot, and you're doing a lot. The biggest difference between doing commentary for MMA and doing commentary for video games in general is that when you do an esport event or a video game tournament event, you're sharing commentary time with probably like 8, 9, 10 people, and you're also sharing the commentary budget with those people as well, like in terms of what you get paid and how much you work. So like I'll go to a 3-day event and I'll work around 2 to 3 hours of commentary a day per day, which ends up being 9 hours. But when I started doing MMA, it was like 9 hours straight of commentary sometimes. Nobody else, just you and me, or just me and one other person. And it was.
I've announced 32 fights in a row one time at like some wild, I think it was like a Derek Brunson fight night.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I announced like 30 fucking. No, like there were 28 fights, and I announced like a bunch of jiu-jitsu matches and shit like that on top of it, dude. It's exhausting, man.
Yeah.
Like I've judged like 150 kickboxing matches in like a day and a half.
Well, Meg Steep, she hit me up after the most recent fight for it and was like, how do you do it for 8
that
hours.
long.
And I'm just like,
you have to love that
because
shit.
I started out doing it for 1 hour, and then I moved up to doing 2 hours, and then 3 hours, and
Remember that one time we had a show drag out for almost 12 hours?
Yeah, I remember that. I remember how we were. That was our first podcast, really, because we were just podcasting for a lot of.
We were
time.
just talking and talking, and like they were like, "Hey, Trevor, can you please talk to the crowd?" And I'm like, what are you like? I was so emotionally and mentally drained after that. They're like, how are you calming these people down? And I'm like, I'm about to threaten them with violence. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm going to start fighting people.
That Crawdads jersey looked great on you.
That was great.
You still got that?
No, I get so funny because I was living in Florida at the time, and when I flew back, it's funny. One of my clients was a big. He went to the college there, and he was a big Crawdads fan, and so I gifted him the jersey. Like, it was such a fire jersey, and I wish I kept it. But like, just me being me, I always like.
It was almost like he was supposed to be there, and he was supposed to.
Yeah, and I was like,
I feel that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, he was like, I love their new uniforms. I was like, oh, I got you, man. Here you go. And he was like, it was his birthday, and I was like, here you go, man. Like, yeah.
I remember
that
when I first signed up for Fight for It, I was like so grateful that they gave me a shot, and I was so worried about doing well. And then after the first show, they were like, "You were amazing. We'd love to have you back." And a lot of people were just like, "I can't believe that was your first time doing it," not knowing that I had just been preparing, sort of for this in my own way, like not intentionally preparing, but preparing a little bit at a time at small points in my life. And pretty much from the first time I commentated MMA, I was like, "Yep, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I need to pursue." And it's been 4 years since then. 2 years have been coronavirus years, which fucking sucks. So I mean, there was no MMA during that time, but it seems like MMA is pretty much back in the Carolinas for the most part. I'd love to see the State Athletic Commission back up and running. That would be nice. But
hopefully, like something in 2023 will happen. Is what people are saying.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice to see some shows back in Raleigh again, because fights in Raleigh are something else.
Yeah,
it's just
it's
nice.
A fun time.
It's
so nice to have them just here. Fuck, man, it's so
there was
nice.
that venue. What was the venue Next Level used to use all the time? On the fairgrounds. I can't remember the name of
the Jim Graham building.
The Jim Graham building, I think is what it's called. That's a fucking great venue.
Great little venue, yeah.
And parking's good there. It's easy to get in and out. Like, you know, there's not a lot of places like that.
Old CFP fights used to take place in the Dorton Arena, or the one that has like the dome top. Like those were always neat.
That's where I've seen a lot of pro wrestling there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Dorton Arena is it's almost like famous in the pro wrestling world, which is it's always been weird to me. There haven't been a lot of, especially in the indie wrestling world back in the day, especially in the territorial days, Ric Flair and all those guys. It was a lot more of a prestigious arena than it is considered now.
Really?
That's why a lot of indie wrestling shows still go through there and want that venue more than anything, is because it's kind of historically.
I had no idea about the wrestling. I just know it as like it's always that building they have random shit in during the state fair.
Yeah, I'm sure Bobby or someone else that's a little bit more immersed in the world now probably knows a little bit more about this. But yeah, back in the territory days, North Carolina, South Carolina, the whole Southeast territory was huge in wrestling. I mean, you know, rednecks love wrestling.
Oh yeah, they do.
We love it.
Dude, I never understood it growing up. So many people were into it. I was like, I like this fighting stuff.
Yeah. I didn't,
because the stories are real. But like that's the crazy thing to me is like with the WWE, I'm like, a lot of those guys outside of wrestling are just guys that want to be left alone and read a book. Where like, I mean, in fighting, that's how a lot of the guys are too. But like, they don't need to add anything on top of themselves. They're like, this is what I've come from, and this is what I'm about to fight in a cage. And you're just like, what the fuck?
I kind of liked it as a kid, like a young kid, because it was the Attitude Era, and it was like,
I mean, when I saw like Hulk Hogan get a black beard, I was like, that's fucking cool.
Stone Cold Steve Austin running around doing his thing. The Rock basically
there was
raising me.
Like old wrestling was really cool. Like when Stone Cold and The Rock were up there, like that was a neat era. Like even me as a kid, I was like, okay, that was cool, but like not my thing.
But then my mom, when she got together with John,
I'm hooked to some fucking Amy like
grassroots
wrestling.
Now you are.
I'm like, I don't care about WWE. I'm like, hey Bobby, you want to take a road trip? Let's go.
Yeah, the product for WWE now is kind of shitty. I mean,
AEW seems to be where it's at.
Well, I feel like the problem with AEW has actually good wrestling. I mean, I don't follow the product for either very super closely. I definitely wouldn't consider myself.
Oh yeah, we got to see what Bobby's.
Fan,
I want to see this more ring sports stuff. Looks like Bobby's doing some fucking.
The only time WWE is very exciting is when they randomly bring in somebody, like a cameo or somebody from another organization. Like the most recent thing that happened with WWE that was super hype was they brought Cody Rhodes over from AEW, let him use his AEW music, his costume and everything, which is just so unheard of for WWE to do. But when it happened, the payoff was insane because they got a shitload of exposure to it. Yeah. And then also Ronda is like the biggest draw in women's, or one of the biggest draws in women's wrestling
Velasquez
now.
went to it briefly. Tyson Fury went to it briefly.
I mean, everybody likes to make guest appearances, but Ronda actually works. You know, she works in there and has gotten markedly better in the 4 years she's been doing it. But also, it's like she's over with wrestling fans. Like, not MMA fans that watch wrestling, because most MMA fans despise her, but when you go online and read comments under a WWE post that has her in it, she is majoritarily over with like kids and shit like that, and so was John Cena, but that's what gives them staying power, is that they sell t-shirts and they're over with toys and kids, and I feel like, you know, there is a place like that for other people in MMA that could do it. There's other people that could do it, but no one is really willing to put their bodies on the line in the way that those guys do once they see how hard it really is. Like, they look at it from the outside and they're like, it can't be as hard as fighting.
Oh, like, I knew like it's a very physically challenging thing to do, like that routine
in a very
of it,
different
like,
way than fighting.
It is, and it's a different. Like, even seeing it like live now, I'm like, I mean, I've always known like wrestling is tough, but it's always like a set.
Because you've seen The Wrestler.
No, I mean, even growing up, I mean, you just like, The Wrestler's a great movie, but like, even as a kid, like, people tell you it's like, no, it's a scripted thing. Like,
Well,
like,
that was actually
growing up around fighting is like, they'll always tell you, it's like, well, wrestling is a scripted thing. It's still, a lot of fighters do talk about wrestling as something that's super fucking hard.
Because like, there is some crossover. There are guys that do a lot of both. Yeah, when my mom got with that indie wrestler and I started going to wrestling shows and going backstage and seeing behind the curtain and seeing that these guys were all just like characters, then it became infinitely more cool to me and more interesting, because I was like obsessed with the storytelling aspect of it. And then, you know, Eddie Guerrero became the biggest thing in the world, and he was like my favorite wrestler for a long time. And what really got me addicted to wrestling at that time was reading autobiographies of wrestlers and seeing more behind the scenes shit. And now it's like, you know, back when we were growing up, it was like a super well kept secret that pro wrestling. It was like they would do anything to protect the fact that it was scripted. They wouldn't outright say it. They'd go on Arsenio Hall and be in character. Now it's everybody knows. It's all out in the open, and it's celebrated the fact that it's scripted.
And that's what I like about it now.
Yes.
That's where it's kind of like if I saw Pierce Brosnan on the street and he said he was James Bond, I'd be like, you're mentally ill.
Right, yes. Kayfabe is not really as big of a deal as it used to be. But, I have a lot of respect for pro wrestling, obviously, but my love now is with martial arts. I'd love to maybe commentate some pro wrestling. I think that would be
so much fun.
Really fun. So maybe that's in our future. But guys, that's it for this week's episode of the 10A Fightcast. I think we may have a special guest next week.
Yeah.
And next week's episode should be a really interesting one, because we're going to be talking about our favorite fights of all time. So there's not a lot of UFC stuff going on. There's apparently in 2 weeks there's going to be a card with Rosenstruck and Volkanovski, but there's no other fights.
Wait.
Am I? No, I'm thinking of who's the heavy?
Who's
the heavyweight? Volkov. Volkov and Rosenstruck. That's the only fight that's been announced for that card, so I don't think we'll have anything else to talk about. So we're going to bring on a special guest that we'll keep secret until
closer. Trying to get Dylan to come crash a kickboxing match with me.
Yes, that'll be June 11th, so we'll have something to talk about in a couple weeks. But next week's episode, we'll be talking about our all-time favorite fights from multiple eras, and we'll have multiple kind of qualifiers, live fights, local fights. So you get to hear all about all of our favorites, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the 10A Fightcast.